Welcome to EMTalk. These are the stories about saving lives from the people who saved them. Today's episode is man's best friend, canine companions, service dogs. This show literally has gone to the dogs. Here to discuss saving lives, your host, licensed paramedic and director of EMS programs at Texas EMS School, Juddson Smith.
So I definitely got to give a shout out to Brian, our producer. I didn't know that line was coming. This has gone to the dogs, and I was very impressed. It was clever, and it made me laugh. But you could argue I laugh at everything, so who knows? Was it impressive? Was it not? We'll never know. Well, today I have a very special guest to me. This guest was able to help me train what has become my best friend, and my wife, still my best friend, Allison. I know you listen to these, so just so you know, Athena hasn't taken your place. But a service dog, her name is Athena, and she's currently at our feet, and we're hoping she decides to stay that way. You're going to learn some things about service dogs, maybe some myths that they are absolutely perfect all the time. We will dispel those myths. But our guest today helped me train Athena, and Athena has made a life-changing difference for me and has helped to save my life and keep me sane, and everybody around her loves her. So let me go ahead and introduce Miss Melissa Scroggs. And Melissa is going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about who she is.
Hello, Judd. Thank you for having me today.
Thanks for coming.
Yes, this is exciting.
Absolutely. I'm excited. We've spent a lot of time together, but it's always in the context of either I saw you at the gym or training Athena. And so we've been to a bunch of public places together, shopping together, just trying to teach this dog to act the right way. So what is it that you do?
Well, I train service dogs for people with disabilities, mainly psychiatric and mobility issues, something like PTSD, TBI, anxiety, depression, stress, or even people with missing limbs.
Okay. Actually, I didn't know the last part, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into a question on that. What does a service dog do for people with missing limbs?
They can steady you if you have muscle weakness or with a missing limb, for instance, a leg. Then they can you can use them to hold you steady while you get up, or if you're down on the floor, if you need some help getting up. They will lock their limbs so that you can bear all your weight on them at their shoulders. That's the strongest point on their body.
So my guess is that you would use dogs like Great Danes or something is probably a popular one for this.
Well, not necessarily.
Oh, okay. I was wrong.
That's right. My top pick for this would be a male golden retriever or a male lab, because they have denser bones and they have a bigger bone structure, and they're better able to carry your weight.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I never would have thought of that. I immediately jumped to whatever the biggest dog you could train is. What's that giant dog breed that's real popular right now?
Mastiff.
Mastiff, yes. Yeah. I saw one of those the other day out in public, and it was like somebody's walking a horse around. I mean, it was crazy. Yep. I couldn't imagine. Well, I mean, it would be fun for a while, but then, I mean, how do you travel with a dog that big? I mean, it just becomes complicated.
It does. You have to make a lot of accommodations.
Yeah, and really, that's how it is when you take a dog anywhere you go. It's a lot of work. It's like having a specialized child that you have to take around with you. And anytime somebody would have referenced their animal, pet, service dog, whatever it may be, as, oh, this is my kid, I usually was like, okay, well, do you have any actual kids? Because it feels different. But then having one that I spend a lot of time with, it is like having a kid. I mean, they need something constantly.
Absolutely. And you've always got to be prepared for the worst case scenario with them.
Yeah, I've really come to to appreciate what the worst case scenario could mean. It's been a lot of fun. So you train service dogs primarily. I know that you do some training with pets as well.
I do.
Is that just like general obedience training?
I do. I do puppy training. I do general obedience, basic obedience. I do advanced obedience. And I also do therapy dog preparedness and some behavior issues.
Okay. So like we have an employee here, or one of the vice presidents here, Brandon. He's one of your clients, and he was trying to curb a bad behavior issue, right?
That's correct.
So what was that, and how did you try to help fix that?
Well, his dog he has a small terrier, and his dog would become very barky, very mouthy around other dogs.
Okay.
So he really enjoys walking at Lunsford at ACU. So that's where we went. We want to make that time with him and his dog enjoyable so he can continue with that. So we would take the dog up there and we would walk, and I taught him and his dog how to see the other dogs coming at you from a distance, and then how to work them. And so there's a special technique for that. And I taught him the technique so that he could do it when I wasn't with him, because we only meet once a week, and he likes to go every day. And so it's important. His dog was very smart and learned very quickly in just a matter of days.
That's good.
Yep. Now he's able to go up there and enjoy his time around other dogs and not have to worry about his dog.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, he would talk about that dog a lot, and it just sounded like it wasn't a problem that I would want. So he's brought the dog up here before you had started working with it, and it didn't seem to like people all that much either. So, or it was just me, but who knows? Well, so this is something that I run into all the time having a service dog. She gets called a pet, which is mislabeled because legally service dogs don't constitute the same definition as a pet.
That is correct.
So explain the difference to me.
Okay. So a service dog actually performs a specialized trained task for you.
Okay.
Not just one usually, but many.
Okay.
Okay.
And a pet just survives.
A pet is just something that you take care of and that you feed and love and meets your needs for you at your house usually.
Okay. Yeah, and so when I travel a lot, yes. I go to baseball tournaments and travel for work and everything, and it's come up a couple different times where they tried to label her a pet, and then they'll ask, where's your license, your service dog license? That's not a real thing, is it?
That's not a real thing. There's a lot of misconceptions out there on the internet, and a lot of people will try and sell you a license or a certification and take your money.
Yeah.
But that is not a real thing.
Yeah, I've gone out there and researched and found you can just buy something that says this is a licensed service dog. And it generally, the public should know, if you can just go out and buy it without any proof of anything, it's probably not real. And you're going to run into that a lot. You probably get a lot of emails like that from Nigerian princes.
Yeah, I get a lot of requests for people if I would just send them one, they would pay me for it. And I don't want to put my name out there for something that is going to injure somebody potentially. So I don't do that.
Well, and that's really probably bad for business too. I mean, you can make a little money doing it, but if they go out and their dog is terrible, then why would somebody else want to? Well, who's trained that dog? Well, she's certified by Melissa Scroggs. Oh, okay, that's not where I'm going.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And I honestly can't remember how I found you. I think I was just like looking around on Facebook, the people and what their reviews were and recommendations, and I think I stumbled on your page.
Yes, and we have some mutual friends too, and I think somebody referred me to you.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, you are well known around. People know who you are. That's a
good thing.
In Abilene, that's like the only thing that matters is if people know who you are, then you can maybe survive here. Right. So how is training different between a service dog and a pet? Like, is when they first start, I assume like the obedience training is pretty similar, right?
It's exactly the same.
Okay.
This is the process. I'll explain to you the process.
Okay.
So you called me up and you said, I think I want to have a service dog, and I want to. This is what I do, and you explained your job to me, and I said, well, I'd like to come and meet you, and I want to come to you, and I want to come to your office where you're going to use your dog, and I want to learn everything I can about your disability, and we're going to put a training plan together, and that includes picking the type of dog that best fits your needs. So that's what we did. I came to you, and we went over your disabilities and what your needs were and what you wanted out of a service dog, what your goal was. And we talked about where to get a dog, what's the best place, and what's the best breed for you. And you chose the Miss Athena, and she's a chocolate lab, and she's precious. And we started from, I think, 8 to 10 weeks. I can't remember.
She was only 8 weeks. Yeah.
She was little. We started with basic obedience, and it's the same basic obedience that I train all dogs that come to me. Same process, same steps. And then we, from there, moved into service dog cues. And that takes longer, and the amount of time is not steadfast. It is, just depends on how quickly the dog learns and how much time you spend working with your dog. Not everybody is that dedicated as you were. You were really good, and you wanted to see results fast, and so she moved right along. And she became a really good, obedient dog really quickly. Now, that's not to say we didn't have to overcome some things.
Yeah.
But look at her now.
If she wakes up during this podcast, she does this a lot. If you have a dog, you notice dogs sleep a lot. I think it's like 18 hours out of 24 hours, supposedly they sleep.
Right.
She has this habit, which I think is a lab thing, where she likes to put your hands or feet in her mouth. And it's just to get your attention. And are you bleeding from it from earlier?
I am. Mm-hmm.
Right there.
Yep.
So, and this is something that we've tried to break her of since she was a little puppy, and nothing seems to work to break her. And she's not biting hard, but it's just hard enough that you feel it and it's not comfortable. And she tends to adjust that based on the size of the human. So labs have a tendency to be really good with children. With my kids, she'll still do the same thing, but it's not the same amount of pressure either. It's nibbles as opposed to like the whole hand in the mouth.
I think it's an attention-seeking behavior.
Oh, yeah. I mean, with you, it's because she hasn't seen you in a while, and so she's freaking out when you got here. And that kind of goes into what I mean by service dogs are still dogs. They still have the same kind of instincts as any other dog, and when they're not doing their job, they're just any other dog. If I take this vest and that gentle lead off of her, she assumes I no longer have the same rules I had earlier.
That's correct.
And that was what I really thought was super interesting about the training that you did with me, was that she could be totally crazy and out there. And then the second that we started to put that vest on and put the gentle lead on, and she started recognizing that was when she had to behave and do the normal things that we worked on, she was a different dog. Most people when they've seen her without the vest compared to it, they're amazed at how different she can be. And she's not bad when she doesn't have the vest, but she's just a dog. She just runs around acting like a dog, chasing stuff and barking at other dogs and whatever. She'd still be obedient when I want her to, when she doesn't have the vest on, but she doesn't see it as her job anymore.
Right. And that's a lot. That's really a good point, because I get a lot of questions like, well, will my dog still be a dog when I want him to be? And I explain, yes, your dog will still be a dog when you want him to be. But then they're going to be looking after you when they're working.
Yeah.
And they definitely know the difference.
Yes, it's very clear that Athena can understand the difference. And it's great. If you're somebody that could benefit from a service dog, I would highly recommend it, because especially if you're on the fence for that reason, like, oh, I don't want a dog that all they do is, they're like a robot. You'll clearly see from, if you ever see videos of her, even when she is working, it's not like a robot. they still take cues. You still have to guide them every now and then to stay on task. It's just part of it. And she's still young comparatively. So she still has some of those puppy tendencies that we have to fight through on a day-to-day basis.
How old is she now?
She's just over a year.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So she's still a little kid. And she knows it, and she knows she's cute, and she takes advantage of it too. So, service dog jobs. You mentioned that you focus in on psychiatric service dogs and amputees, and then was it? I forgot the other one. Was it seeing?
Well, something I didn't mention is that I also train dogs for children with autism.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
That is cool, and that it's also rewarding. But yes, for children with autism, and a lot of times, depending on where the child is on the spectrum, it's more for the parent to give them some relief, in hopes that it will also instigate a response out of the child. Sometimes we get a positive response, and sometimes we don't get any response at all.
Yeah, and autism it's such a wide spectrum that I guess it would be very difficult to train a dog to respond to that person specifically.
A lot of times it's instinctual, and time spent with the person and the dog together. The dog obviously will pick up on all of the issues that the child has and becomes a help to them.
Well, and so you say that, and it really kind of brings up a good point for me, because that's the biggest benefit that Athena has to me, is that I've spent so much time with her. She serves me for PTSD and clinical depression and anxiety. And so I've spent so much time with her that she recognizes little bitty things that sometimes I don't even recognize that are stressing me out, or that are going to cause me to have an anxiety attack, or it's hard to determine, oh, hey, you're about to be depressed, because that's not really how depression works. But she can sense those little things, and she starts to pay more attention to me at those times. And she alerts me to it. She will generally try to get my attention, and sometimes in that aggressive way where she tries to get my hand or my ankles, and it'll happen out of nowhere. And I'll realize, oh man, I am kind of on edge right now. And she kind of brings me back to reality that, okay, we're here, we're in this moment, everything's going to be fine. And when I do that, she doesn't leave my side. She won't wander. And she's usually in my office. She's allowed to wander. She's allowed to lay on the couch or wherever she wants to be comfortable. But if I'm in that situation, she immediately comes to me and stays there. And it's just something she's picked up, and she does it even more in public. And she'll stand in front of me, behind me, which is something that you taught her to do. Right. I can give her cues for that if I'm uncomfortable in a crowded area or whatever.
So let's talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
She does what's called block and six for you.
Yes.
When someone approaches quickly from your front, she will block in front of you automatically. And if someone approaches quickly from the back, she will block behind you.
Yes.
And that not only is that something fun to train, but it's so necessary for so many people. And
so why is it necessary? That's something I'm sure people don't know. It
gives you a sense of relief that people aren't going to get too close if you have a problem in crowds or out in public, and you just don't like people in your space.
Yeah.
And so many of us don't. And people are not cognizant of other people's space so much anymore. They're like handsy, and they want to get close, and they want to touch you, or they want to pat you on the back, or they want to, how are you doing? Shake your hands. And sometimes we're not comfortable with that. And the dog knows that, and the dog will block for you.
Yeah, and you're right. It is an automatic thing. There are times, it only really happens now when I don't notice that it should happen. Uh-huh. And so she notices it, and I don't notice. There are times when I'll try to place her there because I don't want there she goes, she woke up. I don't want that interaction or whatever it may be, but she's gotten really good about, this seems rough, or this person's coming, he doesn't know, and she'll get right up against my legs behind me or in front of me. And that's been one of the coolest things that she's been trained to do, in my opinion. But the most useful thing, again, is that she just spends so much time with me. She knows me, and she knows how to respond to me and how to be helpful to me.
That's awesome.
So, if we were talking about the different types of service dogs you train,
yes.
So psychiatric, autism, amputees, and then there was another one that you mentioned outside of that.
Psychiatric and physical mobilities.
I guess that would fall in the amputee list.
It is.
Yeah, okay.
And it's not just an amputee. It could be someone that suffers from MS and has muscle weakness, generalized muscle weakness, or dizziness where they have to, grab for the wall sometimes or something like that. We can use the dog to steady them or help them get up, or with someone in a wheelchair, we can have the dog pull the wheelchair to them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes, that's very cool. I can have the dog pick their prosthetic limb up and bring it to them across the room. There's all kinds of things that the dogs can do for people in these areas. So,
how do you train a dog to pick up a leg and bring it to somebody? Like, how do they know, how do they get used to, I'm picking this up so that I can take it over here?
Well, there's lots of different cues that go into play. And so you have to teach them to put stuff in their mouth. You have to name items. And you have to teach them to pick stuff up and bring it across the room to you.
And I would say that you and I have tried to get Athena to do this, and we've been successful in some ways, but that was the thing that seemed to be the absolute hardest for her to figure out, was just pick that up and bring it over here.
It was.
And I don't know, you would think with her being a lab, that would just be absolutely natural. And she will pick things up, but it's still difficult for her to determine when I want her to pick something up or what it is I'm trying to get her to pick up.
So the funniest part about your training was that we tried for her to pick up your keys. Mm-hmm. And she would not. And then we had another item we wanted her to pick up. And she wouldn't do it. And then all of a sudden one day, she just went over and picked it up. And
yeah, we weren't even trying to get her to at that point.
No. And then she picked it up, and then she kept picking it up, and after that, it was like a done deal. And she does it.
Yeah, she will pick things up. Mm-hmm. The keys still seem to be the thing that she just won't do.
And it could be a texture thing with her.
It could be. I need, like you said, sometimes you need to add something that they want to pick up onto the object that they pick up.
Correct.
And then it kind of draws them to it. And I hate having big things in my pocket, so I've never put anything big on my keys for her to grab. Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of like a credit card. Like, it would be difficult to pick up anyways.
It is. But there's a special technique to teaching a dog to pick a credit card up. You have to take a credit card that you don't want because you have to bend it in half so that it's not flat. And you start out with it bent, mm-hmm. Like that. And then that way they can get their mouth on it.
Athena. She really likes this tablecloth, and she's doing this thing where she takes off her gentle lead. So just for the camera, folks at home, you can't see this, but a lot of service animals will wear this thing called a gentle lead. And a gentle lead is kind of like a horse bit or bridle, and it allows us to guide the dog without causing any kind of real pressure or uncomfort or discomfort. And it just goes over their nose. You'll see lots of dogs out with this, and you'll think, oh, hey, it's a muzzle. I get that a lot. Why do you muzzle? If you have a service dog, why do you have to muzzle her? Not a muzzle. She was doing it a few minutes ago, putting Melissa's hand in her mouth. She can still use her mouth just fine. All it does is guide her. It just is a gentle way to guide. So she's on her regular leash now, and you'll notice that she'll start to act a little more like a dog, because this is part of her uniform that tells her that she's working. Correct. And so I wanted the camera to see the difference in some of her behavior without this on. And we'll leave it off for a little bit and see how she does. See, this is what I mean. This is the big difference, is she wants attention, she wants to be a part of it, and then when you do it again, she changes.
She knows she's a working dog now.
And I've got it all tangled up, so that probably doesn't help.
There you go.
I'm sure this sound is real interesting for you guys at home that aren't watching this. It's the most interesting part of a podcast is when nobody's saying anything. Okay, hey,
Good girl.
sit down.
Awesome.
Let's go down. You know it. There we go. And we're back to behaving. So that's what Melissa has helped me to train this dog to do. And that's the big difference in how she responds and how she feels when she's doing that. She's still trying to mess with this table, though. Okay, you may have to cut some of that out. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the different kinds of service dogs that are out there. I did some research because I found out like there are hundreds of different jobs a service animal can do.
There is.
So I think this is one that you introduced me to, was a cancer sniffing dog.
There is cancer sniffing dogs.
So that, to me, that's amazing. And I guess it's just they're smelling the difference in the cells.
Yes.
Which I don't even, how do you teach a dog? I guess it's similar to how you teach a dog to find drugs, I guess. You introduce them to the smell and...
Lots of nose work, it's called. And there's also COVID, dogs that detect COVID.
What?
Yes, there's dogs that detect seizures, alert you to it before it happens. They can teach dogs to alert you to just about anything.
So how does a dog detect a seizure? That a seizure's coming?
There's a chemical reaction in your body, and they have a sense that picks up on it.
Okay, so that chemical reaction is part of what's called an aurora. An aura, not an aura. And that's something that seizure patients sense before they have the seizure, but a lot of times they sense it too late. And so they still can fall and hurt themselves. And that's the real danger of a seizure. Seizures are scary to watch happen, and nobody enjoys being a part of it. But the real danger is when they fall or they hit their head on things when they're moving around. And so, if you have that situation and you notice, I assume that what a service dog would do in that situation is alert the owner via barking or some other method.
Oh, yes.
And then that probably also, some of them are trained to alert others that it's happening, I would assume.
That is correct. And while I don't specialize in that field, I do teach the service dogs to alert people when we're out in public. For instance, if you fell down and hit the ground, if your dog was trained for this, they would run to somebody, the closest person to you, for instance, at Walmart, jump on their leg, paw them on the foot, something like that, really seriously to get their attention and bring them back to you. And then they would lay across your body and stabilize you until they actually got someone there to help you. If that first person didn't respond appropriately, then they would go to a second person and bring that second person back to you.
Wow.
The cue is called, for me, it's called get help.
It's just amazing to me the amount of things that you can teach an animal to do. I really didn't understand the extent of it until you started helping me train Athena, that it's these habits that you help them form, and the habits, you have to have something that they identify that with, and then there's a reward process to that.
There is.
And it's super intricate. It's very difficult. So how did you get into this? How did you learn how to do this?
Well, in 2012, I was incarcerated at Texas Department of Criminal Justice for Women in Gatesville, Texas. And I was hired on February 14th, 2013 to train service dogs for Patriot Paws out of Rockwall, Texas. And we train dogs for disabled veterans. And I spent the rest of my incarceration, which was 3 years total, learning to train service dogs. And I knew that that's what I was going to do when I got out. And so I threw every minute of every day into learning everything that I could about dogs, training dogs, and specifically service dogs. And I took every note I could, I copied every manual I had, everything that was at my disposal, I made copies of, so that when I got out, which I got out in August of 2015, I knew that that was the job that I would have the rest of my life. And so I came back to Abilene, and I went to live at New Beginnings, which is a women's transition home for women coming out of incarceration. And I started training dogs at night, and I just, word of mouth got around, and I just had more dogs and more dogs and more dogs. And here we are, 12 years later. I have 37 dogs I'm training right now. And I also own a kennel.
Yes, I've used your kennel before.
Yes, and so I'm very, very busy, and it's very rewarding. My motto is I change people's lives one dog at a time.
And I can absolutely attest to that. As I mentioned in the beginning, Athena has been a lifesaver, and I'll get into that more here in a little bit. I wanted to ask some more questions, though, about that, about you training the dogs. So your business is called Christian Dog Training.
It is.
And this has to do with your faith.
It does.
Okay, so how does that factor into what you do?
Well, I was a 24-year methamphetamine addict with no relationship with the Lord. However, once I got to Taylor County Jail, I knew that my choices in life had gotten me where I was at, and that the only other thing I knew that was more powerful than myself was the Lord. And I got down on my knees and cried out to Him. And from that point on, during my incarceration and through today, I do everything that I can to build my knowledge of Christianity and Jesus and love. And so when I got to prison, I was at my first job. I was on a tile floor, scrubbing it with a toothbrush, crying out to the Lord when a chocolate lab puppy ran past me. And I knew right then that was the Lord's answer to why I was there. I knew I was in prison, but I couldn't figure out why I was in the location that I was at. And I knew it was because He wanted me to be in a certain place to see what He had for me. And that's when I made application to Patriot Paws to be a dog trainer. And I was hired a few weeks later and moved to a different location. And that's where I train dogs. And I know that without the Lord, I would not have learned what I learned. I would have not made the changes in my life that I made. And I would not be where I'm at today training these dogs and making the changes in people's lives that I do.
Well, and it's an amazing story, and I think that what you've been able to do with it is, one, you change people's lives with the dogs, but two, you change people's lives with the story as well, with your testimony. I mean, it's an amazing comeback story. It's an amazing survival story, and it's an amazing Christian story and a walk, learning about a walk with Jesus that has taken you all the way through to where you're at today. And so, I mean, not everybody listens when their calling comes. And it's amazing that you did, and it has changed a lot of lives. I think almost every week I meet somebody, and I'm like, oh, who trained your dog? And it's, oh, Melissa. So I hear from people and see people all the time that your work has made a difference in their lives.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
I get the funniest phone calls sometimes. Because I know, let me just back up a little bit and say that when I was picking a name for my business, I knew that was one of the most important parts of having a business was, what people were going to remember you by. And I chose Christian to open up the door so that I could talk about how awesome our Lord is and what He has done for me, because I'm not special. What He's done for me, He can do for you or anybody else out there listening. So that's why I named it Christian. But I do get phone calls like, does my dog have to be a Christian before he can come and train with you? Or will my dog be a Christian when he finishes training with you? And I assure them they absolutely will.
People crack me up.
So.
Sorry, Athena, I woke you up. Hey, I'm not going to stop. Good girl.
She says, okay.
Very good, very good. So I think that's an awesome part of what you're doing. And so to dive in a little bit into why I have a service dog, and what it's done to change my life. So I started EMS 12 years ago, or 13 years ago. And I transitioned from being a youth pastor to being an EMS. The two worlds are very, very different. I already had a propensity for depression and anxiety that had gone unnoticed for years due to my sense of humor, probably. It's my defense mechanism, and it gets me through a lot of bad situations. And so getting an EMS, as you could imagine, did not help my mental health very much. In fact, years of it, as it's done to most in EMS, has made my mental health become just an out front part of who I am. It's led to depression, highly medicated depression, highly medicated anxiety, PTSD, a number of other issues. And the point where Athena came into my life and where you came into my life was a pretty dark point for me. The world did not seem like there was any hope there. It didn't seem like there was any reason to continue on with it. And because of my children and my wife, I fought and managed and kept going. Just trying to find a place to sleep. And so this dog came into my life, and the training of the dog itself made a difference in, okay, I got to wake up and take care of this dog and teach it to do things. And then as she became my companion that was able to recognize how I felt and what was happening around me, not like she knows what I'm thinking about, but she could tell when something wasn't right, and she still can. And the training that you provided to her and to me helped to give me purpose and helped to give me a companion to turn to when I know things aren't right in my head. And that's a lot of my time on this earth is spent with things not working right in my head. And I still have to be a functional human being and take care of my family and be a good friend and be a good vice president to this company. And this dog has helped me to be able to do that. This dog has become a part of my survival. And so that's what a service dog has meant to me. And that's what it could mean to you out there. If you're a first responder or any kind of mental health issue, one, talk to people is the biggest thing. Tell people about it. If I had been unwilling to tell you why I needed this dog, it would have gotten me nowhere.
Exactly.
And so that was one of the biggest steps, was talking to somebody else about a problem that I was having. And, a stranger nonetheless in this situation. And then after that, think about doing this. Think about the issues that you might have and what a service animal could do to help alleviate some of those issues. It becomes your barrier to the world. The Athena is my shield in a lot of situations. And she makes me able to respond like a normal human being in times where I might shut down or where I might try to retreat somewhere else. She allows me to stay in society and go through that situation and be okay. And that's only one piece of that puzzle, though. She's part of it, and I would say, like you would say, God is the other part of that. And my family is part of that, and my friends are part of that. So, here I am on this podcast, and here Melissa is sharing a very important part of her life that is not easy to share with people. And I'm sharing something that's not easy to share, and all of this is because she wants people to know that she can help provide this service to you, and I want people to know that this service exists and that it's okay to have a problem and to need something like this. So in your experience with the different psychiatric service dogs in particular, what kind of changes have you noticed in the people that you work with?
The people that I work with that have service dogs are able to function on a daily basis outside of their home environment. They're actually able to have a job, go to the grocery store, communicate with people. They keep their families together. And that's the big changes.
And these sound like very simple things to anybody that's never experienced, real hard depression or anxiety. It sounds like, oh, we'll go to the grocery store. Okay, go get a job. Okay. It's not simple. When you're in that situation, it's very difficult to do those things daily. Those of us that end up doing it, it's out of willpower. It's sheer willpower, most cases, or necessity. And what Athena does, or what a service animal does for these people, is that it makes it a task that's not insurmountable. It's not one that has to kill you anymore. You can live your daily life, and you don't have to feel like it's just beat you down every day as you live it. So I guess, do people ever come back to you with stories about?
Yes. So when I was first learning to train service dogs, it was they were all for veterans and men and women that had served in our military and had been through some of the roughest, toughest times that we could ever even imagine over in wars in other countries. And they had been in their own war, in their own hell, their own prison back here in the United States when they would get back from those places. And lots of times they had run their families off due to their PTSD or their TBI, their brain injuries. And so they would just be at the end of their life not wanting to live anymore. And so many veterans kill themselves every day. And they would come to us after they had gotten their dogs, and they would tell us that dog had saved their life. They actually had a reason to get up every day and go outside, put their clothes on, go to the grocery. They actually had a reason to live. And that's what makes it worth it. Every time I hear a story like that, that's what makes what I do worth it.
Wow.
So it's so important. And there's so many good agencies and businesses out there all over the United States that train service dogs for anybody that wants them. There's nonprofits where it doesn't cost you anything, and you can reach out to those different agencies. They're all over the United States. And then there are private individuals like myself that also train service dogs, and they all have a specialty. And so whatever your disability is, that's the type of dog that you need to that's the type of place that you need to look for that trains dogs that specialize in your disability, because those are the ones that are going to be able to help you the most. And I don't want you to think that the price is prohibited, because there are places that will work with you. There are places that don't charge you. And I personally am not a nonprofit. However, I try and keep my prices affordable for most people. And when everybody else and everything else, including our groceries, are going up and up and up, I don't raise my prices. I haven't raised my prices in years, and I try and keep it the same so that it is affordable. Plus, I work out payment plans for people.
Well, and I can tell you it was affordable, and it's not like I'm swimming in money. So it was affordable, and it's worth it. Even if it wasn't affordable, the training that you're able to provide would have been